Alright, you can think of this as section 12.7b if you'd like, just because I didn't have enough time to record on the 12.7a video time. Alright, the first step in, this is an equation, the first step in working with rational equations is to factor the denominators, and looking at these two denominators, they're factored already, completely factored, there's no factoring. So the least common denominator is going to be multiplying the two together. You have the quantity of x plus 1 and the quantity of x minus 2. That's the least common denominator of those two fractions. So distribute the least common denominator to the first term, and the x plus 1's will cancel. And so you're left with a minus 4x and the quantity x minus 2, because the x plus 1's canceled. That will equal, when you distribute the least common denominator to the second side of the equation, the x minus 2's will cancel, and you're left with 2 times the quantity of x plus 1. So this you can just simply follow through. Once you clear fraction, that's the huge step. Now we can deal with this. You have a negative 4x squared, and you have a plus 8x when you distribute. Equals 2x plus 2 when you distribute. Set it equal to 0. You have a negative 4x squared. When you bring this over, it's a positive 6x, and you bring this over, it's a negative 2 equals 0. I'm going to divide everything by a negative 2 because you can. So I'm going to have a 2x, a positive 2x, minus a 3x plus a 1 equals 0. And let's see if that's going to be factorable. And you'll have a 2x and an x. A minus and a minus will multiply to give you the plus, but add up to the negative. And factors of 1 are just 1 and 1. So if I check my outers, that's a negative 2x, and my inners is a negative 1x. That will combine to my middle. So it's correctly factored. X equals a positive 1/2, and x equals a positive 1. So you want to check those as well. Next, we're going to go to number 5. And first we have a denominator here of 1. 1 is over 1, that's understood. And I need to factor this denominator. It's the first one we've had to factor. So we have to do step number 1 here. Y and y, plus and minus, plus on the 4, minus on the 3. Now looking at all of your denominators, the y minus 3, the 1, and the two quantities that follow, the least common denominator that you're going to multiply the whole equation by is going to be the quantity of y plus 4 and that's a y minus 3 over 1. So distribute it to the first term, and the y minus 3's cancel, so you're left with a negative 4 and the quantity y plus 4. Distribute to the second term, and this denominator doesn't cancel with anything, so you're going to have plus the 1 gets multiplied by the two quantities y plus 4 and y minus 3 equals, okay, then you distribute it to the last side of your equation, and the x plus 4 and the x minus 3 both cancel, and you're left with just this numerator, a negative 10. Alright, distribute the negative 4y minus 16. FOIL this next quantity, y squared plus a y when you do outers and inners, minus 12 when you do the lasts, equals negative 10. Alright, put things in their place. You have y squared. Combine your y terms here, and you're going to have a minus 3y. Combine these constants, and you're going to have a negative 28 equals negative 10, so you'll add the 10. So you have y squared minus 3y. When you add the 10, you'll have a minus 18 equals 0. And hopefully you can see that this will factor. And you'll have a y and a y, a minus on the 6, a plus on the 3. So y will equal 6 and a negative 3. Okay, so let's go through a check on this one. When you check this one, let's check on the 6. You have a negative 4 over, when you plug in a 6 for this y, you'll get 6 minus 3 in that denominator, which is a 3, plus 1, equals, you have a negative 10. You're going to put a 6 and you're going to square it in the denominator, plus a 6 minus a 12. So let's see, let's make this fraction a 3 over 3. That's the same as 1. And you get a negative 1/3 on the left. In this numerator you have a negative 10. The denominator will give me, these two add up to a 42. And if I subtract 12, I'll get a 30. So that reduces down to a negative 1/3 as well, and that will equal, that's a check on the 6. Checking the negative 3 in the original, you have a negative 4 over a negative 3. Oops, sorry. This negative 3 is going to go in for this y. Negative 3 minus 3 will give me a negative 6 in the denominator here. So you have negative 4 over negative 6. Plus 1 equals negative 10. You're going to put your negative 3 in, and then you're going to square it, so that'll be a positive 9. Put in a negative 3 for this next y. You have a minus 3 and then minus a 12. On the left, you can write this as a 6 over 6 instead of a 1. When you add your numerators, you're going to have a 2 over, let me back up the truck here. That, I need to change this fraction. If it's a negative over a negative, it's a positive. So it's really 4 over 6 plus 6 over 6, which gives you 10 over 6. On the right side, you have a negative 10. Adding these two negatives, you're going to have a negative 15 with a positive 9 will give you a negative 6. So that turns into a negative over a negative, which is positive over positive, and then they're equal. So also the negative 3 checks out. Alright, last two here. Over this is a denominator of 1. Factor this denominator, x minus 5 and x plus 5. So the least common denominator is going to be an x minus 5 and an x plus 5 all over 1. Okay, take that least common denominator and distribute it to the first term, and nothing cancels with this one. So you have 2 and these quantities, x minus 5, x plus 5. Distribute that least common denominator to the second term, and the x minus 5's cancel. So you have this 8 in the numerator times the x plus 5 equals, distribute this to the other side, and both the x minus 5 and x plus 5 cancel, and you're left with an x plus 5. Okay, this 2 will be on the outside, and you have an x squared minus 25 when you FOIL, plus 8x plus 40 equals your x plus 5. And then you distribute here, 2x squared minus 50 plus 8x plus 40 equals your x plus 5. There's an equal sign in here. Moving things to the other side. So I'm going to have a 2x squared, this 8x, and you're going to subtract the x, so you're going to have a positive 7x. You have a negative 50 but a positive 40, so that combines to a negative 10. And then that negative 10, you have to bring the 5 over. So negative 10 with a negative 5 is a negative 15. I'm going to factor, or try. And I have a 2x and an x. One's a plus, one's a minus. I don't know if the plus goes by the 2. I'm going to try my factors for 15. Let's put a 3 and a 5. Now my outers are negative 10x. My inners are positive 3x. That gives me a negative 7x. Right number, wrong sign, which tells me that I really should have a negative on this 3 and a positive on that 5. And now we have it correctly factored. So this x will equal, this is a negative, it'll equal a positive 3/2 and a negative 5. And then you need to work on the check, so let's try that. Checking this out, I have a 2, and then I have a plus 8 over Now if I have 1.5 minus a 5, okay, 1.5 minus 5 is going to end up giving me, I'm just trying to think if I want to do it that way. Yeah, I guess I'll have a negative 3.5. I'll have to change that to mix in just a moment. Equals, then you have 1.5 plus 5, which is going to be 6.5. Maybe I'll write it this way. And the denominator, I'm going to have 3 halves, but it's squared, so that's 9/4 minus 25. Alright, so if I keep going on that one, I'm going to have 2 plus, think of this as a negative 7 halves. I'm going to drop that. That's an 8. That's an 8 over a negative 7 halves. Now when I reciprocate and multiply, I'm going to have this times, when this gets reciprocated, times a 2 over 7, and it's a negative. This will turn out to be a negative 16 over 7. To the right side, this numerator, 6.5, is the same thing as 13 halves. The denominator, when I take 9/4 minus 25, that's the same thing as 100/4. So 9/4 minus 100/4 gives me 91/4. And if I reciprocate and multiply that one, it's going to be 4 over 91. And these will cancel. I'll have a 2. That'll be 2 times 13 is 26 over 91. And that is a negative because this was a negative 91/4. So if I were to bring that down a bit more, I don't have much more room. This is the same thing on this side as a 14 over 2. It's the same, no, sorry, 14 over 7. It's the same thing as 2 minus 16 over 7. Does that equal 26, a negative 26/91? Well, this combines to a negative 2 over 7. If I divide them both by 13, you have a negative 2 over 7 as well. So 3 halves checks. Wow. Let's go to the 5. If you put the 5 back in the original, you're going to have a 2 plus, you're going to have an 8. Now you have a 5 minus a 5. Oh, sorry, a negative 5 minus a 5. And that is going to equal negative 5 plus 5. It's okay to have 0 in the numerator. But here you have a negative 5 and you're squaring it, minus 25. This causes a problem. This is a positive 25, negative times negative, minus 25. That equals 0. You cannot have 0 in the denominator. So this one's not going to be a solution. You only have the 3 halves. Okay, last one here. You have to factor, you have x times the quantity x plus 4, and the least common denominator is going to be all of these multiplied together. You have an x, looking at your denominators, all of the factors, you have one of the factors is an x and the other one is x plus 4. Distribute to the first term and the x plus 4's cancel, you'll have a 3x. Distribute to the second term, the x's cancel and you have plus a 4 and the quantity x plus 4. Distribute to the other side of the equation and both the x and the x plus 4 cancel, you'll get a negative 5. So you have 3x plus a 4x plus 16 equals negative 5. Combine, you have 7x, move that one over, equals a negative 21, and divide by 7, and x will equal a negative 3. When you check that out, you have 3 over 7 plus 4 over 7. Oh, sorry. 3 over 7 is right. No. You have you're plugging in a negative 3 for here, this x. So you're going to have 3 over a 1 plus a 4 over a negative 3. Does that equal a negative 5 over, take your negative 3 and square it, you get 9, plus 4 times your negative 3 is negative on your 12. Alright, that'll be a negative on my 12. And let's see, if I make this the same denominator, these two have the same denominator, I need to multiply by a 3 over 3. That gives me a 9 over 3, and then plus a negative 4 over 3. This will equal a negative 9 over a negative 3. So adding these two, you're going to get a 5 over 3, and when you have a negative over a negative, it turns out to be a 5 over 3. So negative 3 is correct, and you are done. Voila. Good luck with your homework. Read the book or watch this again if you need help.